Hi, welcome to another episode of Talk with Confidence. This is where we have inspirational conversations with inspirational people. Today, I have a truly inspirational guest in studio with us. His name is Daliso Ngoma. He's the founder and chief technology officer at African Technopreneurs. Mr. Ngoma, welcome.
Thank you, Confidence.
Are you well?
Yeah, I'm doing great.
Wonderful,
Yeah.
wonderful.
And thank you for inviting me over.
Yeah, awesome, man. We love inspirational people here, man. And I'm already inspired. I'm seeing gadgets. I just want to touch and hold and press.
Yeah.
But we'll get into that a little bit.
No.
We met at Global Entrepreneurship Week.
Yeah.
And you were helping out a company there with the inventing and actual capturing of the event. Can you just tell us a bit about that?
So what actually happened is that we obviously got in touch with Brawilly. It was by chance at Starbucks. So he was actually looking at what we're actually doing, and this is with a 360 camera. So he actually wanted to use that as a new form of engagement with the audience, because obviously when you're looking at the way that we capture moments as of right now is just either a plain still photo or it's a video, but just in one direction. Also with a 360, you can capture the whole audience and the whole atmosphere at the same time. So that's why we got brought in, and we actually were using one of our cameras, an old version, but it was still quite good at the time, to actually live stream it right there so people could actually engage and see what was happening there for GEW.
Wonderful, man. Yeah. Okay. I feel like we're already on step 10. Let's go 10 steps back.
No problem.
Daliso Ngoma, where were you from? Where did you school? How was Daliso when he was 10 years old?
Oh, wow. So it's a bit of an interesting part. Since at 10 years old, I don't actually remember because of my dad's career. He was a mining engineer. So he actually got us traveling in different parts of South Africa because of his profession. So there was one point we're in like lime makers near to Kimberley, another point we're in Secunda, another point we're in Woodbank, and obviously Johannesburg, 2 legs. So for a high school, actually studied at Heronbridge. And then for my primary, there were quite a few places. So even in Secunda, I remember Oranje Kloot. And also in Woodbank, that was, I've forgotten, I think that was, I'm not getting the name, but all I can tell you is that there was quite a lot of traveling that actually happened. But originally born in Zambia, and then South African by citizenship.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I mean, I always wonder with tech people. I love tech, but I'm not like deeply heavy into it. I don't know what the makeup of the thing is, and I wonder whether that's something that is innate, that you're born with, or is this something that you develop as you get older?
I think it's something that you are able to develop, considering that, for instance, you're able to use a phone, right? Even in its basic form, that is a computer. And things that one way or another, when you look at everything that we even touch on right now, actually involves technology. So it's something that you can actually use. And I think my philosophy, at least with technology, is that it's there to solve a problem. So if you know that it's a tool to solve a problem, it's quite easy to actually learn how to use that tool to solve a particular problem. So depending on where you want to go, some people are very scientific. So obviously getting into the very ones and zeros. Exactly. Whilst, for instance, even being able to build a website doesn't require you to have like a PhD in computer science. You can go onto a website and build your own website from there.
That's interesting, man, because a lot of tech guys, and I'll keep referring to you as tech guys, or nerds, but they don't look like I'm not saying they're goggles, but a lot of tech guys / nerds, they didn't do the hardcore academic thing. It's almost like they got the first leg of it, and then everything else becomes self-taught. Do you find that to be true, or how deep do you need to go into academics to actually be successful in such a field?
I think it really depends on where exactly you want to lie. Because obviously when it comes to the business application, I think with business, it's very like you have to just figure your way around. So for instance, even when you look at something like Facebook, right? It was not like there was an academic process of building a social network. It was actually experimenting to see as to, is that what the market wants? So with academics, it really depends on where you're actually going. But for instance, I think when you're looking at real innovations, you do still find them in the academic stream. But that actually obviously requires quite a lot of time to actually build that and cultivate that. But when it comes to, I suppose, just being self-taught, it really depends as to the application. So quite a lot of the times, the people who actually got into the tech space were just doing it because they had the fun for it.
Yeah.
Some people, it is also money motivated because, for instance, you realize that not a lot of people are privileged to obviously study a degree. So they actually self-teach themselves to like, build a website. And that's something that is highly paid for, and they can actually get themselves a form of income.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's more of a case of where exactly you feel more comfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. And from an academic point of view, where did you study?
So I studied, funny enough, this was in Malaysia.
Yeah.
So it's Asia Pacific University of Technology and Innovation.
Yeah.
And that was a 3-year course of Bachelor of Science with honors in software engineering.
Okay. And how was the experience?
Yeah, it was good. I think the thing is that obviously staying within Africa is one part, and often exposing yourself to a different set of cultures gets you to think that we don't all think the same.
Yeah.
So there are different cultural differences in one for another. I think the one thing I abundantly remember about the place was the weather. It was always humid and hot. It was never cold.
Yeah.
But even then, I think you look at Asia as always seen as like the pinnacle when it comes to technology.
Yeah.
So even like, for example, you look at Intel. Intel actually manufactures quite a few of their CPUs in Malaysia.
Wow.
And I actually found that to be quite interesting.
Yeah.
But apart from that, it was just, I think, that cultural diversity where I've got one friend, same story. He studied in the States. He learned about an automatic rice cooker. And
cooker.
Exactly, a rice cooker. And then from that, he actually got the idea for an automatic pop cooker. Yeah,
that's quite interesting. I'm seeing. So all the pop lovers out there may not need to cook pop much longer.
Exactly.
Just get the pop cooker. That's interesting. Yeah. But what I love about that is getting insight into universal innovation, but then localizing it so that it's relevant for the culture of the place where you're at.
True.
Yeah.
True.
I mean, you're a young man.
Yeah.
You're 26 now.
Yeah, 26.
26. That's incredible with what you're doing.
Yeah.
A lot of people your age are in companies working for IT as other technicians, software developers.
Yeah.
But you're an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Your company, African Technopreneurs.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a bit about that?
So African Technopreneurs started off as a venture to actually build fellow technopreneurs within the African context.
Yeah.
And during the process that I think you see quite a lot of guys who want to build up fellow companies, but don't actually have the business acumen to actually lead and actually get people into that same sort of step. So sometimes I think it also happens where if you've actually run a tech company, it's also quite easy to now become an investor. Not to say that it's the same sort of skill set, but because you've gone through all the barriers, it now makes it easy to now see as to if it can be proven in the market or not. So the same thing for myself is that initially I was in Asia for quite some time, but it wasn't home. So that's why I came back. Initial thoughts was to actually start working for another person, but then it was just a leap of faith. And what is the worst thing that could actually happen? I'm still quite young. I won't have to worry so much as in if I lose all my money, I can still bounce back. So that was primarily it, and that's where, for instance, even right now, it's also coming into skill development. It was like, for instance, I studied my degree for 3 years. Not to say that it was a waste of time, but the one thing that clicked was that anybody could actually do this. And that's why, for instance, even the people that I bring in, I really don't care as to what your background is. Regardless of if you had a degree or not, it's a case of if you've got the attitude, it's quite easy for me to now teach you how to do things. So even touch typing. I think that's something that I think people think as nerds you obviously know how to do like quick typing or whatever. That was something I actually self-taught myself. This is within the university context. Before that I was just like tap. But yeah, as in that's primarily I think the encouragement that I had, that I've got a passion for teaching, and I think through that it's also how the business has actually come about, where through bringing in new innovations, those can actually bring forth teachings that can actually help everybody else.
Cool, man. And you know the thing about people who love teaching, they love learning as well. So I mean, what I'm sensing is that there's a lot of time that you spend in actually developing yourself, so that you can develop others. I mean, in terms of the business that you work with, on a typical example, what is a typical client that you have?
So typically, like right now, I'm not too sure if we can actually point to.
Let's get into the gadgets.
Yeah. So, like for instance, this is a virtual reality headset, a wireless one, and we have a variety of clients. So right now, one of our big clients actually develops a variety of applications for industry. So, for example, when it comes to mining, instead of actually trying to get people into a mine, you can actually teach them in virtual reality before they can actually encounter it. Even the same thing like repairing washing machines. That's also something. That's something that was also quite interesting.
So the goggles take you into the washing machine and shows you the different.
Exactly. So you can actually have various components that you can actually touch and manipulate and see as to how you can actually do.
But wait. I thought virtual reality was touchless in that there's you're seeing the image, but you can't physically touch the image. Are you saying that the technology is there allows you to almost tangibly manipulate or move things around?
Yeah. So that's where we're actually even diving into, which is somewhat what they're calling mixed reality. So you can actually fuse reality in the same virtual space with a variety of components. So like with this one, it actually has a controller that you can actually control and manipulate your environment. Later on, it won't even require these same controllers, but you're actually using your hands to manipulate the environment. And other things would be like to add haptics. Simple term would be vibrations to whatever you're touching. So if you touch an object, you actually feel it's in virtual space.
But it's communicating with your senses, your touch and feel and smell and whatnot.
Exactly. So that's the thing. And if you look at the way that we can even push experiences, is that at a later stage you think of even sense. You can actually mix them right there and then. So maybe you're going through an experience like maybe a mine shaft or whatever. If you smell something, it can actually indicate that there's danger somewhere. And you actually have to react to that.
Man, that's incredible. That's incredible. So we've touched on this. I think we're going to come back to this a bit later. But we're talking off air. About this. Can you just tell us what this is?
So this is literally just a solution to data roaming. So it's one product that we've actually been distributing here in South Africa, which is called FlexiRoam. So the ability of this is that it's a microchip that sits on top of your SIM card to actually make it easier for you to roam without having to pay those high roaming charges from all the other providers. But the unique ability with this company is that they've got the microchip, which is one thing. They've got a physical SIM card. So if you've got a dual SIM phone or you prefer to use a SIM card, you can do that. But now the new push is with eSIM, where your phone already has an inbuilt SIM card. And all you need to do is scan a QR code from your provider. So in this instance, FlexiRoam, and you're already connected to the network.
So I won't have to go to a walk-in center at an MTN, Vodacom, Telkom, and get a SIM card. As soon as I buy the phone, the SIM card is already in there. And it's just a matter of transferring data onto. So the QR code can be anywhere. Either they sell you a physical piece of paper, or maybe it's on your computer. So maybe you go onto like vodacom.co.za, you click to buy a new prepaid starter pack, you scan your QR code, you're already connected. Wonderful, man. All right, the third gadget we have.
So I'm not too sure if you know what this is.
No.
So it's actually got 6 cameras.
6 cameras,
6 cameras, and they're all recording at 8K. So you think like HD would be 1080 pixels. So that's just the dimensions that you've got. So it's actually 1920 by 1080. So that's just your resolution. So what you actually see on the screen. So when you think of an HD screen, that's what we're actually talking about. Then we've got 4K. So 4K would actually be double what you get from HD. 8K is actually double of 4K. So you think of the exponential growth that you get from that. And the ability with this camera can also record in 3D. So I think simple scenarios that you're watching on TV, the content that you're seeing there is just flat. Whilst with this, in combination with this virtual reality headset, is that you can actually see the depth of whatever we're actually getting here. So whatever you're seeing on this table will actually feel like it's actually right there in front of you. So this enables that to do or to perform at a higher dimension. Exactly. So that's the thing, and this is actually the easiest way to get into the virtual reality space because it doesn't require any programming. All you're doing is like with a camera, you just take a picture or you start recording, and you can really experience it in virtual reality.
Awesome, man. You also tell me off air that there are some businesses that I mean from a cost point of view, this you said cost about
it's around
100K. Yeah. So I mean, as a business, what would I ordinarily use this for? As an example.
Okay, so with this, I would probably say that this is more for more your video work than anything else. I wouldn't really say that it makes much sense in like your company setting. But for instance, in the teaching environment, maybe you want to actually engage the class and the lecturer at the same time. Yes. You can have one of these sitting right there in the middle, so people who aren't actually there can actually see and even interact with their fellow pupils within the same classroom. Apart from this is that there are also 360 security cameras. So you think of like your typical security camera, it's pointing in one direction.
CCTV, you just see him running, then it disappears.
Exactly. So it doesn't make sense. So at least with the 360, you can't run away from
you can follow him into the corner.
Exactly.
Okay, awesome, man. Wow, this is very, very exhilarating. I'm thinking of the possibilities and what implications such technology can have for teaching, for the education space, for example. So I mean, instead of going to a class, whether it's at a high school level or tertiary level or even primary level, you can be at home and you're seeing all the students, you're seeing the teacher, so what are some of the implications that technology like this will have on the future? I know it's a broad question, but just ideas and what you've been exposed to. What are the major dramatic changes that it's going to bring about?
Yeah, because it was actually quite interesting. I think I was actually listening to just a quick interview this morning on the radio where they were talking about technology where it's taking people's jobs. But the jobs that it's actually taking are the repetitive jobs, not the ones that actually require you to think or even to create things. So creativity in itself is creating. And that's where, for instance, when you're looking at quite a lot of this technology, what actually replace where, for instance, there's quite a lot of repetitive work.
Mechanical type of work.
Exactly. So maybe like even with lecturers, you could actually have a virtual lecturer right there and you can actually interact with them. And then if, for instance, you do need that human element, you can still put that through. So for example, you look at Oculus, they've got what they're calling virtual avatars, where, for instance, you can have a teacher and it could be any person. You wouldn't necessarily know who it is, but they look so real in their aspect that a substitute teacher could actually be that teacher, but you wouldn't necessarily know who they are. But apart from that, I think it also just broadens the horizon as to how we're going to communicate with each other. So for instance, right now, I think travel is one thing that quite a lot of us have to do on a regular basis, just to meet with each other. So imagine maybe in the future, I'm not too sure, it could be the case that you're actually talking to a hologram, but you wouldn't be able to differentiate the difference. It would be so lifelike that you are actually still experiencing that same moment in real time.
So for instance, if we're doing this interview in 30 to 50 years in the future, you would be at home, I would be at home, all I need is the chair, and we are here, we are both holograms being captured by one of these, and we edit it. We'd have the same experience, but it was all virtual. So is that where it's going?
Yeah, so that's where it's going. So obviously, like what I told you about the same mixed reality is that, for instance, this at the beginning of the interview, we even shook hands. That would be something that you could possibly even feel.
Because your sensory nerves will be, the technology will allow you to also use your sensory nerves. So if I'm holding your hand,
just like that,
I'm still feeling it. Albeit we're in a virtual space.
True. Because like when you look at technology, I think there's always this talk of the threat of like AI or whatever. That technology is there again to enhance our environment, not to actually threaten and evaporate it. Because I can tell you, if you had an AI versus a human, of course the human would lose. But if you've got an AI versus a human plus an AI, the human plus AI element would actually still be able to beat the AI.
That's you've touched on something that I really want to get into. We're talking of the possibilities that technology brings. Can you touch on? And I know you're an optimist, especially in the techno space. But can you touch on some of the threats that possibly technology, whether such as this or AI or other forms that are coming up that could have on human beings, on human existence, human relations, etc.?
I think the biggest threat right now, I've just been dabbling with it in my mind, is like the credit system. Right now, money is not physical, right? it's all just in bank accounts as ones and zeros. As in, if there's money in your account, that's just on the basis that we trust that the account actually has that money. But now it ends up being like this credit rating system, where now you're being rated on just those variables. That, for instance, maybe you've just got a bad situation, but you can't clear a record just due to the fact of the vast amounts of information that's being collected about you. And I think that's where you've got that thread, where obviously we advocate for privacy, but to what end? Because what's being done by quite a lot of companies, like Discovery, is that if you behave in a certain manner, which is actually safe, or to the ability to make you live a healthier life, they reward you. And if you think about that, is that now it ends up being a case of certain actors within this environment cater for certain behavior that they want other people to replicate. So that's the thing, as in, at the end of the day, you would necessarily have this individuality being dictated by companies. So you look at, for instance, basic things like the App Store from Apple. Or even, I'm not too sure so much on the Play Store, but the App Store is that if there's an app that violates their agreements, they can just be kicked off. And you have to realize that there's so much power just being given to one company that can control as to what exactly you actually do.
Because that almost, it's a form of brands monopolizing human behavior.
Yeah, exactly. So you even look at algorithms as well, is that all these applications that we use are built on the basis of actually wanting us to engage with them. If their algorithms or the way that they were made were not effective, would not actually engage with them. So that's why, for instance, maybe people, I was on Twitter for quite some time, when it was still in chronological order, all the other social medias were putting it into like an algorithmic way where, for instance, things are now jumbled up. But the reason why they jumble those things up is because they know that it actually engages the users. Rather than if they just go on, maybe they just go through the timeline for the last 2 hours, they stop, they put their phone away. But now if like the posts that you've got are all in a different order, you're more likely to still engage, because now there's different timelines as well. And that's where I think you do have a bit of a scare as well, as to at least for me, is that I've tried as much as possible to not so much rely so much on technology, even though I'm a tech guy.
That's a funny thing for a tech guy to say.
Exactly. But I think it's like with everything in moderation. It's an old and tested reality that we actually put in place. That if, for example, you overconsume in anything, it might actually have detrimental effects as towards your own well-being.
So although its potential and its creation is for your enablement and empowerment, overconsumption.
Exactly.
Then, I mean, even social media, for example, it's good for, you can connect with old friends, but you find somebody who spends 6 hours of their day here, they're not being productive, they're wasting so much time, and at the end of the week, they haven't done much because they've just been here. So although it's a tool for engagement and connecting, it also can be a distraction that disables you from doing a lot of things.
True. Because like with anything, entertainment, there's nothing wrong with entertainment. But I think if you're just like binging the whole time, and you're not necessarily being productive, it also deters you from being a better person.
I was at Design Indaba showcasing sometime, I think 2 weeks back, and there was one presentation that stood out for me. It was a guy who had an actual antenna on his head, so it wasn't he didn't wear it, it was implanted. So he could feel vibrations, he could do all kinds of things. He could with the technology, he could read the vibrations on people's faces. And it got me thinking, the issue of what they call cyber, when cybernetic, cyborg, when cyborgs merge with people.
So pretty much like an android
human. Because now we hold the phone like that. But in the future, it may be a chip.
Exactly.
And your hand becomes your phone.
Or think about it, we can even remove that barrier. You just communicate through mind. As an end of the day, you just accept the call in your mind, and often you just communicate with the other person. Because why do you need to? Because like for instance, even us typing, this is archaic, because that's just the way. I think Elon Musk had actually described it, where it's an archaic way of actually inputting data. But if you can remove those barriers, now it's just quicker forms of communicating.
So we're just thinking.
Exactly.
So 30 seconds, let's just do the interview. So this is how interviews in the future will be.
That could be the case, but I think I think where you still want to make sure that you humanize things, because there's certain elements that, as much as, like, for example, we will have autonomous cars, right? Yeah. Cars that actually drive themselves. There'll still be people who would want to drive a car.
Drive the car, yeah. Exactly. You love the feel of the V8 engine.
True. Because, like, it's the same thing. You've got automatics, but people still prefer, like, a manual. It might not be the most fuel efficient, but it's just that fuel. Yeah. But depending on how we look at, again, like governments, how they determine how we live in the society, is that if, for example, there's a higher prone chance of human error coming into the equation, there'll probably be this need for the human to be removed from this environment. Else we have to find a way that there's a middle ground. Yeah. But again, it now comes into ethics as well. Yeah. That if, for example, we have these autonomous vehicles, they have to make a decision as to who exactly will be the one that gets involved in the accident. Is it the driver? Is it the person who's maybe just stumbled in front of the road? Or is it another set of passengers as well? Which, again, just creates a different way of looking at how the future would turn out.
Because you mentioned 3 words there that stand out for me. Yeah. Removing the human. Yeah. Or removing the human. removing the human element. Yeah. And I guess it goes back to the conversation of artificial intelligence. Yeah. And I mean, it's a hole that we can go into and stay in for 2 hours. But I do agree in that technology is there to empower us, to help us and get and actually progress. Coming back to your business. Yeah. You are very Afrocentric in that, you know, you want to see development in Africa from a tech space. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I suppose it's just a case of, I suppose quite a lot of South Africans that I've seen haven't necessarily traveled through Africa. Yeah. I think that's the one thing that I always see is that when you travel through the rest of Africa, you'll realize that they're not having it as good as what we see here in South Africa. And those are the things that, of course, Africa as a whole is now a mobile first generation. But quite a lot of the developments are still quite far back. But slowly but surely, that's where I just wanted to see as to how we can actually better ourselves and bettering our fellow Africans as well. Where, for instance, they don't necessarily have the same opportunities. Because you have to realize, like, for example, most of the stuff that you can learn is actually on YouTube. Whilst, for instance, in South Africa, it's crazy. You can be paying around 150 for just 1 gig. Yeah. Whilst the guys in Kenya are paying like 23 rand. I've forgotten what the amount is. But it's like, those are the barriers to how we actually grow as people. And that's where I think within what I actually do is that I'm trying to see as in how we can break these barriers or these artificial barriers which are just put in place. Because like even tech, like what you're saying, is that is it something that's built within, or is it something that you can actually teach yourself? And that's the thing, as in once you, at least I think for quite a lot of people, once they touch on tech, they realize that there are all these misconceptions. And I think also maybe media as a whole portrays that this is the archetype of like a nerd or whatever. And then you think like, if I'm not like that,
it's not for me.
Exactly. Exactly.
Okay. I mean, in terms of what you want to see happening in Africa from a tech space, I mean, there's amazing things happening in Rwanda. It's Rwanda with President Paul Kagame. So I mean, there's a lot that's happening from a tech point of view. True. For me, when I look at that and it's happening in Africa, it's almost like Wakanda coming to life, you know. True. But you know, this thing of Afrofuturism. And actually Africa being the next frontier in terms of technology. Do you think it's a pipe dream, or do you think it's something that we can really actualize?
I think it's something that we can actually actualize. The only issue is that I think there's always this thing of, as much as you want to innovate, there are also the powers that be, like politics, that come into the picture. That if, for example, we don't have world leaders within Africa who are willing to actually push our fellow Africans in a better seat, that's where we could actually fall behind. Because you already see that where, for instance, as much as the Chinese actually do innovate and bring quite a lot of innovation, they're being favored more compared to the fellow African man on the streets, which just seems a bit crucial when it comes to wanting to develop these skills which will be crucial for the future ahead.
It's a backward way of working, because if you aren't empowering the people on the ground and giving them the skills, knowledge and tools, then when you leave with the knowledge.
Exactly.
What do you see your company in particular? What influence do you see your company having on the African continent from a techno space? Because even your name, African Technopreneurs, is big. When I hear that, I'm seeing like a global company with an African footing that's doing amazing innovations. What do you see your company achieving, doing, implementing in the next 5, 10, 15, 30 years' time?
Okay, so 5, 10, 15, 30. I was just thinking,
choose one of them.
Yeah, true. So I think if you're looking at short term, 5 years, we're literally looking at a company that, at least for me, I think when looking at business, I've always thought that it makes more sense that it's profitable. You look at the likes of Takealot, up until now, it's still not profitable. And that's on the basis that they take more of like the venture capital approach, where a whole lot of money is pumped in before they can actually break out and make that profit. So for myself, it would be to be profitable, but in the same sense, bringing up a set of people who can actually be able to work with me in like 5 years or so, and after 5 years, probably 10 or even 15 years, are able to establish companies of their own, which have different needs that need to be fulfilled within Africa. So at the end of the day, it could be that if those needs are fulfilled within Africa, they can actually even be exported to the rest of the world. What you see quite often is that we necessarily look to either the East or the West, but not necessarily within ourselves to actually try and innovate. Because the thing is that you look at, even for example, your big companies, they generally just design in their own country and then get the stuff manufactured in China. And this is crazy. We can easily do the same thing ourselves. Where, for instance, you don't necessarily have to manufacture everything here to begin with, but you can still take that approach of seeing as to what can actually work, then actually take it to be mass produced, and that can be something that can globally influence everybody else. Because one way or another, I think even when you look at the way that us as Africans are quite resilient, we can necessarily spread that ethos, because I think for me it might not be in the technology space, but you look at something like music, there's so much African influence within quite a lot of these cultures, where they necessarily want to take that. But
even for fashion design, I saw a Louis Vuitton bag that's actually South African, and here we sell it for $50. Louis Vuitton took the concept and selling for 5,000. You know,
and I think that points back to what is actually even seen as value. What is the value that we see as Africans as well? That if, for example, we can see that we are worth more than what others people perceive us to be, we can necessarily value our goods for those same higher prices as well.
And actually seeing the value in what we produce, putting value on it, and then selling it to the world. Whew, 30 years. But you know what? It's not a fair question because technology moves at such a pace.
True.
That you know you can't really. I think it's something that having the 5 or the 10-year plan is enough in the tech space, because 30 years, you don't know what type of innovations. We know we may be on hovering chairs, you know, we may be conducting interviews in the sky, you know.
True.
Yeah, but I mean, it's an exciting space that you're in.
Yeah. Because you talk 30 years. I think it's just a case of we necessarily don't know what exactly will come up, but when it does, I think that's where we have to be quick and agile to actually adapt to that new innovation. Because you think of the new thing, especially with connectivity, is 5G. How exactly can we leverage 5G for these new types of devices that will be connecting to that network?
There's a quote I love by this business speaker called Peter Drucker. He said the best way to predict the future is to invent it or design it. And I mean, you guys in the tech space, you are literally designing and inventing the future, which I believe, I mean, it's like I said, it's a very good space to be in. How can people get a hold of you, whether I'm an SME, whether I'm a big corporation? I've listened to you. I love what you're offering. I love your philosophy of wanting to help other entrepreneurs, and I really want to connect with you. What do I do?
So typically, as in, my number is actually everywhere. I hope that people don't bug me, but my number would be 076-766-7684. And I'm also reachable over email as well. So that would be Daliso@AfricanTechno, so AfricanTechno.com. And apart from that, is that I'm also on social media. You can drop me a direct message and I also respond to that. But either way, is that I think for me is that as much as I would like to engage with people, is that my encouragement is that you always just start with something. You have to prove that at least your small proof of concept has worked within a small setting. Because I think the other thing that is also a danger with the people I engage with from time to time is that there's a whole lot of theory rather than actually practice.
Yeah.
So the things that at the end of the day, if I were to, like for instance, I sell this in the market and people are calling me to actually buy that same units, I know I've proven a business idea, or actually proven that the market actually needs that.
There's a demand.
Yeah, there's actually a demand. Or for instance, if I have, like for instance, I think there have been a variety of things, like for example, the taxi industry, where there will be like this, this cashless or cardless way of actually paying. But you have to think about it. If you've been able to at least get it working in one section, one area,
in one township or one community.
Exactly. Then you can expand it to everywhere else.
Proof of concept.
Exactly. It's a proof of concept. I think that's just the hardest thing that I think people just don't get, is that once you've proven the proof of concept, regardless of what it is, it can even be a silly idea. The thing is that at the end of the day, that's when you can actually get to move it from that proof of concept to something that you can actually build out as a whole company, and something that people would actually want to engage with as well.
Awesome, man. You, sir, are a leader.
Thank you very much.
And I see you doing great things for the African continent.
Yeah.
All the best, my brother.
Yeah. Thank you, confidence.
I'm inspired. I'm sure you're inspired. Yeah. That was Mr. Daliso Ngoma of African Technopreneurs. You've been watching Talk with Confidence right here on Global Conference TV. See you next time. Eitada.
All right.